Hey everybody, long time no see. Today's story is about Henry McCabe. On a quiet September night in 2015, a man walked away from a gas station in Fridley, Minnesota, and was never seen alive again. 30 minutes later, however, his wife, thousands of miles away in California, received a phone call that still chills anyone who hears it. What she heard wasn't a conversation, it was something else. Something that sounded like pure terror. This is the strange, unresolved story of Henry McCabe. Henry Toby McCabe was 32 years old. A Liberian immigrant, a husband, a father of 2 young daughters, an auditor for the Minnesota Department of Revenue. By all accounts, a hard-working, well-liked man who had survived years of civil war in his home country and built a quiet life in Mounds View, just north of Minneapolis. On the evening of September 6, 2015, Labor Day weekend, Henry's wife, Corrine, and their children were visiting family in California. Henry went out. He spent the night at a club called Pavlitsky's on Highway 65 with a couple of acquaintances, including a man named William Pappas Kennedy. When the club closed in the early morning hours of September 7th, Henry got into Kennedy's car. According to Kennedy, Henry insisted on being dropped off at a gas station instead of going home, not the closest to his house. A holiday station in Fridley, a few miles in the opposite direction. Surveillance cameras later confirmed at 1:58 a.m. a vehicle matching Kennedy's pulled up. A man matching Henry's description stepped out. He began walking away as the car drove off. That was the last time anyone saw Henry McCabe alive. 30 minutes later, at 2:28 a.m., Kareem's phone rang in California, so she answered it. What she heard has been described as one of the most disturbing recordings ever recorded to a missing persons case. Henry's voice was there, but wasn't the calm, articulate man she knew. There were grunts, moans, sudden bursts of screaming, and sounds that some listeners say resemble growling. Fragments of speech that are almost impossible to make out clearly. At one point, a voice, possibly Henry's, possibly someone else, says the words, "Stop it," then silence, and then the call cut off. Corrine immediately tried to conference in Henry's brother, Timothy, but he didn't answer. The rest of the call was left as a voicemail on Timothy's phone. A full 2 minutes of that same chaotic, terrified audio. When Timothy finally listened to it the next day, he knew something was terribly wrong. Henry was reported missing. Police reviewed the gas station footage. They checked cell phone records. Henry's phone had pinged near Creekview Park in New Brighton, a few miles east of the drop-off point, around the time of the call. Then it went dark. Of course, searches were organized. Volunteers from the Liberian community combed parks, roadsides, and wooded areas for weeks, and yet nothing. Until November 2nd, 2015, a kayaker on Rush Lake in New Brighton noticed something in the water. Turned out, it was Henry's body. He had been in the lake for quite some time. The Ramsey County medical examiner found no signs of trauma, no gunshot wounds, no stab wounds, no broken bones. His cell phone was in one pocket, the battery in another. Cause of death was ruled probable drowning. The case was not considered suspicious. But the questions never really went away. The gas station was roughly 3.5 to 4 miles from where his body was found. Could a man, possibly intoxicated, have covered that distance on foot in the half hour between the drop-off and the voicemail? Or did something happen much closer to where he was last seen? Kennedy had initially given police a different gas station location. That inconsistency did raise eyebrows, though surveillance eventually matched his later account. Henry had left his wallet and keys behind that night. His phone was deliberately powered down after the call. And then there was the voicemail itself. Even now, more than a decade later, people who listen to the full recording struggle to explain what they're hearing. Some claim they can make out the words, "I've been shot." Others hear names. Others hear nothing but panic and pain. The official ruling says accidental drowning. Henry's family and many in the Liberian community have never accepted that. They believe someone did this to him. In the years since, the case has lingered in that gray space so many unexplained deaths occupy. Not quite a closed file, not quite an open investigation, just a man who walked into the night, a terrifying 2-minute recording, in a body that turned up weeks later in a quiet suburban lake. There's been no arrests, there's been no clear answers, only the same questions that have followed this story from the beginning. What happened in those 30 minutes? Who or what was with Henry McCabe when he made that call? And why does the official explanation still feel incomplete? Sometimes the most unsettling stories are the ones that refuse to resolve. If you have any information about the death of Henry McCabe, the Mounds View Police Department can still be reached. And if this story stayed with you in the way it stays with so many others, let me know what you think in the comments. What do you think happened that night? Until next time, guys, sleep well.